I'll just start the meeting, and then we'll do the election of chair, and then I'll pass it off if one of you would like to put their name in, and then, or we can nominate. Okay.
Right.
So I'm Laura Christie. I'm the planning technician. Hi, nice to meet you. So I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. So we're going to do the election of chair, and I'll call for nominations. So I call for nominations 3 times. And then you can put other members' names forward, or your own. I guess you're just putting other members' names forward. Okay, so I'll call for a nomination. First nomination.
Well, I would like to nominate Carla, although I saw her shaking her head earlier.
Is that a no, Carla?
I feel like I have an application that's coming up next time. So is that probably not a good idea to nominate me, is what I'm thinking. I nominate Lori.
I'll second that.
Should we nominate someone who's not here? Yeah, no, I nominate Dave. Yeah, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I nominate Dave.
I second Dave as a nomination.
You seconded, Carla? So, okay, well, yeah, I guess, I'll continue on
Okay.
for sure, as long as I can be useful and things don't get too controversial.
Okay, so Dave, you're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Sorry. All right. So, yeah. So, Commissioner, let me look at Lang, will be the chair. So the staff ratifies the appointment of member Dave Lang as chair of the Area G Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission for 2004.
Right. Yeah, it's by acclamation because we didn't have to vote on it, right?
Yeah, I think that's all we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you can call the meeting to order, Dave.
Okay.
And get on with your things.
Yeah, so, well, there's a few items on the agenda. But I don't have the agenda in front of me. Does someone know how to post the agenda?
I can find it and share it.
I can share my screen too now, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Can you find the agenda? Oh, you got it.
Yep, so we're just, yep, this is the line item, Dave. Do you want me to make it bigger? Is it legible
please,
on your screen?
Yeah.
It's the traditional land acknowledgement.
Oh, okay, just a sec here. Yeah, okay, yeah, please make it bigger. My eyesight isn't all that great, so. Okay, yeah, so let's go for it then. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. And I'd like to acknowledge that we respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda as displayed. You have a motion for that, Carla?
Yeah.
Lori,
I motion that.
Lori seconded. Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, we adopt the agenda then as circulated here, as posted. Now we did receive the minutes from the last meeting, which was October the 25th, 2023.
Yeah, they were attached to the agenda package.
Right. Do we need to review those minutes, do you think, or are we okay with that? Do we need to adopt those minutes or anything, or has that already been done?
I believe they just get received.
Okay, good. Yeah, because the agenda, all of the agenda items that were on there were, moved and carried, right, and recorded as such.
Yeah.
There was only one question I had. Can you scroll down a little bit, Zach, there? The public, there was a line item at the bottom of the agenda that said, public forum or whatever, public input. Is that something new, or is that just a cover off, any sort of meetings or future meetings that we have where public get an opportunity to have some input?
It's always on there, the public
time. Yeah, that's
it's just often there is not public at the meeting.
Right. Okay.
So sometimes it doesn't happen because there is no public to ask questions.
Right. Okay. And so we've got a couple of items that are on the agenda that are coming up here. I just had some questions around the information that we received. Like, we received information on that rezoning application for that resort development at the base of Whitewater Ski Hill Road, Rumbling Creek, and they included. Since that time, we got a copy of a environmental assessment that was done. Do we need to approve or not on that particular development again, or is it covered off by the approval that we did in the last meeting?
Yeah, I can speak to that, or Laura, whatever's easier.
Well, I was just going to mention the language of supporting or not supporting rather than approving. Just we've been told to remind the APHCs, that you're supporting or not supporting these planning applications. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that, but Zach can talk about the development permit that goes with that rezoning. Do you want to talk about that, Zach?
Yeah, first, can I just confirm that you guys still can see the minutes? Because I did just move some stuff around on my screens here. It's still on the minutes? Okay, thanks. So, yeah, the reason why that's back for another round of review is because we previously looked at the rezoning application, so the zoning bylaw amendment application, to allow the use in principle and to permit the additional density that they were proposing. This is now, the item that's on the agenda today is a watercourse development permit application that was always required. It's just that we did receive some of this information at the time that the zoning bylaw amendment was submitted. It's just that we didn't want to kind of jump the gun and proceed with the watercourse development permit before at least getting first and second reading completed by the board of directors. So that happened at I believe it was the February meeting, might have been January, sorry. So yeah, the zoning bylaw amendment did get first and second reading by the board, and now we're proceeding with the review and circulation of this watercourse development permit application. So this is kind of to facilitate the more fine-grained details of the actual site design and to confirm to staff that there isn't any significant environmental impact with the proposed development.
Right. Yeah, like it's occurred to me that none of us are environmental experts, so when we see the environmental assessment, it's hard for us to determine whether or not it actually is going to have a real negative impact on that area or not. But it is signed off by a registered professional biologist who we have to rely on to make that decision, or at least provide us with the information and the recommendation, right?
And I guess what I would just like to point out is that in terms of how the agenda is laid out, we're just jumping to item 5.2. And I don't know if maybe we wanted to just, because we do have an applicant for 5.1 on the line, maybe we should
Okay.
actually just step back and review that one first before we get into the other one. Sorry.
Okay. That sounds fine, Zach. Then let's do that.
Zach, can you scroll up a bit on the, there you go. That's good.
Yeah, so we have this proposal for agricultural land reserve development, which is essentially the customer wants to make a house within a barn in order to meet the needs of some special needs livestock that they have. And under the ALR rules, they now are allowed to have two residences on agricultural land. And so I guess what we could do is we could ask the gentleman who's on the line here to talk about his proposal and let us know what he has in mind there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dave. My name is Rob. Basically, we want to do a second residence, and the reason we want to do it close to the horses isn't actually because we have special needs horses now, but because when you have a stables, you will in the future, you have sick and birthing and horses that need to be or could be watched, but also that the residence is an old log cabin. It's a beautiful place. So we're going to do a second residence, but the problem is that the residence is a touch bigger than is allowed, 90 meters squared. And so we were just asking for, I guess, an amendment to make it a bit bigger, 150, the barn portion of it. And the fact that it's attached to where the horses can be watched, is kind of just a different thing. I want to make it clear that the horses we have now don't have special needs, but in the future, let's see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. So like I used to do a fair amount of building, Rob, and like normally there's a bit of a conflict between the structural rules in the building code or between agricultural and residential construction. In terms of the loading of the roofs and that sort of thing. Have you thought about that or how you're going to overcome those issues?
Yes, I have. I've hired a professional who's going to deal with it, and he's come and looked at it, and he seems to think that it's good because it's a really well-built log barn. It is old style, but it is well-built. There might be some issues with vapor barriers and insulating that have to be dealt with, the regional district and code. But he and I think that we can make it work. It's a very strong old barn, and it's basically the oldest, nicest building on the property, in my opinion.
Right. Have you checked into? Have you checked into any rules around whether there's any health regulations that would prevent you from living with livestock?
That is a good question. I have not.
Okay.
I could just add a bit more context, Dave, if that's okay.
Sure.
And yeah, from my perspective, this is just a bit more from the review side and the RDCK's comments. So as part of this process, I do circulate the application to our building department so that we can get some preliminary comments before the applicant proceeds with the building permit application. I haven't gotten those comments back yet, but we'll have a good sense of code requirements or if there's any implications with regards to a dwelling unit sharing a wall with an existing agricultural building. So yeah, rest assured the building department will review, and given that it's in an existing structure, there might be a requirement for certain aspects of it to be signed off by either an architect or an engineer, but those comments are forthcoming.
Right.
And just to be clear, like I have hired an architectural technologist who is going to help me and also hire engineers and guide me through the process. I'm not trying to do it myself.
This might be a little off topic, but like, would it not be a better plan to build a house adjacent to the barn, or like, you know, in close proximity, and then, you know, then you'd overcome a lot of, you know, engineering issues and building code issues and all sorts of like foundation issues. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but the whole point to this building is that it is a beautiful old building. Like, it is gorgeous, and I want to preserve it. It was already tried to be preserved once by previous owners who lifted it off the ground and poured a concrete pad underneath it. And so it is all about preserving the log barn, basically. And the way to preserve it is to not have it as a barn, but bring it way up to code and have it as a residence attached to the two stalls and just show it off like it was supposed to be, I guess. Originally not quite supposed to be, because originally it was cows that was in the portion that is now going to become, you know, the second residence. But it's all about preserving the art of the barn, basically. It's not about it being easy, that's for sure.
right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Have Lori and Carla, have you had an opportunity to look at what's being proposed? Like, and do you have any comments or anything?
I just have a clarification that I'm hoping that Zach or Laura can answer. Is this the property that's adjacent to the other property that's being discussed today?
No, they're two separate areas. This property is closer to Salmo.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the property is closer to the Whitewater Hill.
Okay, got it. Okay.
It's, I believe, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, is there like a nursery or like are you selling like plants out of that place?
That is correct, but I am not the nursery. We lease the property to them.
Oh, okay.
If you read through the application, the LR, that nursery is, we should be taking possession of the primary residence in November, and they are going to burden their property there.
Oh, okay. So the people who are living there now are not you. And so,
That's
but you're
right.
the owner. Yeah, okay, gotcha. That's
yeah,
right
that's
across from the forest retreat, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
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 Any comments,
Yeah.
Lori?
No, I have familiarized myself with this, and I don't have any comments at this point, or I don't have any concerns to discuss at this point either.
Okay.
I also don't have any concerns with this at this point. It seems like a great idea to revitalize a building that's already in place and that has historic value.
Okay.
And one thing I'd just like to mention is the sketches that you see, like, those are very preliminary. I hope to have dormers and it to be a beautiful looking thing on the highway here instead of what it is now, a complete eyesore. If you happen to drive by today, just so you know.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so what I'm wondering then, Zach, what do you need from the commission tonight? Like, is there anything that you need us to do? I mean, until we hear back from, you know, the building department and stuff like that. I mean, I guess in principle, we don't have a problem with it. I mean, there's an issue with the size, right? And what has to happen to overcome that?
Yeah, I can speak to maybe more of the application like items, and then Laura can maybe speak more about the procedure of what we're looking for with these recommendations. But yeah, this is kind of just an application to consider the size of the dwelling. You know, like I don't want to weigh in too much in terms of my personal opinions because that's not my role here. I do think it's a great thing to be using an existing building and revitalizing a building like this, recognizing there's going to be some complexities, but Rob seems to have given this a lot of thought, and that's kind of clear based on the professional that he's hired and everything. Like, I think it's a good start to this application, but there are going to be some hurdles that I've already identified with Jeremy DeWitt, who is like the consultant that Rob has hired. So, with that in mind, really in front of us today is just the application to consider the size of that secondary dwelling and to weigh in on if there's any community-based concerns with regards to having an oversized secondary residence in accordance with the ALC regulations.
So, oh, go ahead.
Carla?
I just had a question around, I'm assuming that the neighbors to the north of this have been consulted, to the ones that are closest to this property?
Yeah, that's Lee and Mir, yeah, our neighbors, definitely. Yeah, they're friends of ours.
And I guess just a little bit more in terms of like, sorry, Rob, go ahead.
To the south of us is Dave. He's the old fire chief from Weimar. And then to the west would be Forest Retreat. But yeah, sorry, like as far as you're asking to the people to the north if they've been consulted about this, that was the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're friends of ours. So we've talked to them about it lots for sure. They've watched us kind of work on it for quite a while because we've done quite a bit of work already just to refinishing the logs. They used to be all covered in bark and now they're refinished, sanded, and covered in Tyvek, being protected until we can hopefully build an extended roof over both sides so they don't get weathered anymore, along with everything else. But yeah, the people to the north are friends.
And just in terms of like the procedure with the ALC applications, we don't like the RDCK doesn't notify neighbors of these types of applications. It's not part of the requirements. But if this were to move forward, there would be other applications like potentially a development variance permit or a floodplain exemption application that may be required. Development variance permit for sure would be required. We're not sure about the floodplain exemption yet. We have to get some more detailed plans and understand where the habitable floor space would be located. But either way, what I'm just trying to say is that there will be additional kind of applications required that do trigger consultation with neighbors.
Right. Okay, understood. And the people to the north are the ones most affected because it's that side of the property.
Yeah,
So
I was
I
just
would,
worried about sun, that's all.
Sorry, go ahead, Carla.
As an agricultural property, I was just worried about, not worried, I just wanted to make sure there was some consultation about sun or about blocking of sun if the building's larger than was initially, like that is within the typical range of buildings, that's all. But it sounds like you've done all the consultation and that there are other mechanisms in place after this, so that's good.
So Dave, I was just going to say, basically someone could put forth a motion to support or not support. And then if it could be seconded, I mean, I guess it's basically just do you support or not support this referral? And like Zach said, this might just be the first of, there might be other applications coming up.
Right. Okay. So yeah, just calling for a motion then.
To support this
To support,
application
yeah.
at where it's at?
Yes. And we have a seconder for that? Carla? Are you in favor of supporting it, Carla?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, and I would support it too at this stage of the game. I mean, we don't know all the details yet, but it sounds like Bob's done a good job in trying to present it, and it sounds like he's really committed to trying to carry this forward. So yeah, do we need to vote? I guess it's just yes, we can vote on it, I guess. So all in favor? I'm gonna put my hand up. Okay, carried or resolved, as you say. So Bob, I guess that's it. You got the support of the APC at this point as far as it goes. And we'll probably be talking to you again in the future about, where it's going from here.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay,
Bye now.
thanks, Bob.
Cheers.
All right, moving right along here, Zach. Can you move our agenda up?
Scrolling it. Do you mind scrolling it up? Thanks. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, so just getting back to the resort application, the environmental assessment, I've looked at it. You know, it's scary when you see the culverts and the water courses and the fact that it's on the Salmo, in the headwaters of the Salmo River. But it sounds like the biologist has had a look at all of the issues there. And I mean, I get, you know, the developers are paying the biologists to say what they need said. But, you know, at this point in time, we've taken it to the point where, you know, we're not, like I say, we're not experts in environmental design or whatever, environmental impact. So unless we're going to change something at this point, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't just advance it to the next stage. Any comments from Lori or Carla? Have you guys looked at the environmental assessment? That's scary.
Yeah, I mean, I have, and I sort of feel the same way as you. I don't feel qualified to really make too much of an informed comment. Yeah, and I mean, we did, you know, support the application to this point previously, and presumably, you know, we're assuming that it's all, you know, correct, and if the assessment passes through, then it's good to go. But yeah, for sure, I have, you know, we always have some concerns and worries about, you know, keeping the pristine quality of our environment, you know, at the forefront. But all that to say, I don't really have too much more to say about that. I don't really feel informed enough.
Any comments, Carla?
I wasn't in the meeting that this passed at, and I just looked at the date of this, and this environmental assessment's from March 2nd. I'm just curious about how this could be done, this environmental assessment, prior to the logging that's happened up there. I'm just curious what the additional impact of that logging is in that riparian area. And I'm not a biologist, so I don't know about that. It just seems
right. Well, like I saw a section of the environmental report that had the water table as being, you know, less than 2 feet below the surface, right? But these guys that are trying to do this are looking at bringing in fill, like gravel, like creating a lot there. And as long as their footprint stays to the lot that they create, and they don't start messing with the rest of the, you know, like the aquifer and the water and that, then I think it's probably going to be okay. But there are some, like they've identified some culverts that come across the highway that drain the highway. They come out right near where their development is supposed to be. But, you know, according to the biologist that signed off on the environmental assessment, you know, it's okay. So, I mean, we're not really in a position to scuttle it, I don't think, at this point in time. You know, they've invested a fair amount of money there. I would imagine, you know, these guys that own it are from Whistler and from Vancouver, Carla. And they're looking at doing, I don't know if you have the details on it, they're looking at putting like cabins in there, right? And having it as a resort. But it should be beneficial for the people who are coming to Nelson to do cross-country skiing, you know, Nordic skiing or going up Whitewater or whatever, and special events and that sort of thing. So it could be just, you know, financial, could be just a development for financial purposes as well for the future. But, you know, well, I don't know what else we could say about it. I mean,
I guess I could just add in one of the recommendations of the QEP's report just to provide a bit of context, because yeah, like I'm on the same page as you guys. I'm a planner, but I'm not an ecologist or not a biologist. So This whole process of watercourse development permits, it is sort of like a professional reliance model where, a qualified environmental professional provides us with a report with site-specific recommendations in terms of how to minimize or mitigate the impact. And one of the conclusions of the report was essentially that, if you're looking at the property from Highway 6, the far back right corner of the lot will need to remain free and clear of any building structures and alterations. So yes, there will be a requirement for some grading and some fill likely, but there is a designated portion of the lot that will have to remain undisturbed. And that was one of the main recommendations of the QEP's report. I guess I just wanted to flag one other thing that we will be capturing through the development permit process, and that's just generally, like building department and fire department concerns. With adding this type of use, those are things that we need to consider. So, we're still working through, internal meetings and meetings with the applicant to kind of discuss how we'll approach those types of details. So nothing has been resolved in terms of like a final design yet. This is just what's been pushed forward at this point in time by the applicant. And you might see that, some alterations or revisions to the design of the site or the layout of the property.
So that was my other question, was about Weimar Fire, because I think this is under Weimar Fire protection place of this. Is that correct?
I think Area G goes right to the Whitewater turnoff. Yeah, so it probably is. Yeah,
I think it is.
Weimar, Nelson,
I think it is. And so I'm just curious about the increased capacity of Weimar Fire to have to deal with anything that happens at this site. And the other piece I'm concerned or have thoughts about is around the access. Like, yes, okay, at the end when this is all done, that's great. But like, where are all the trucks driving into this property from? And is that all like that kind of access? Like we saw it, if you look at the development that's happened next to Walmart there, and that whole building that's happened within Nelson, and you see the actual impact that has, or even smaller projects that are in Weimar, just about like the amount of trucks and traffic and all that kind of stuff that's on this property. I'm just curious when that gets captured in the process. Zachary.
Yeah, so that was part of the discussion and the comments surrounding the rezoning application, and Ministry of Transportation is the agency responsible for reviewing proposed and existing accesses and looking at sightline requirements and ensuring that that all property accesses are safe in terms of vehicle egress and entrance. So it is something that's more of a Ministry of Transportation issue. They have the jurisdiction over the public highways. We as the RDCK defer to Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for those types of access related questions or issues.
And has Weimar Fire been already consulted about this? I'm just curious because I really feel like they go up to the other side of Whitewater, I believe.
Well, Hans actually was at the meeting, at the last meeting, just not as a member of the commission, but just as a director. And so he was aware of the project, Carla. There were questions around, all of the traffic coming out of the Whitewater Ski Hill and then people trying to access the highway from this proposed resort, and whether that would create, traffic congestion and safety issues and stuff like that. But like Zach says, that's highways, right? That's
Right.
Yeah.
It's certainly a good thing to bring up and a valid concern. But yeah, I did just want to clarify that it is more Ministry of Transportation jurisdiction. And yeah, thanks for reminding me about the fire department, because I forgot that part of your initial question. So we are anticipating a more detailed response from Weimar Fire in terms of their overall concerns with how the site is currently proposed in terms of the layout of the buildings and everything. There's requirements under the building code, to have vehicular access for emergency service vehicles to all, buildings on the property or all habitable buildings. So yeah, we'll be consulting with them more through this process before any type of final site design is reached.
Right. I guess it's not, for me, it's not about access. It's about the amount of labor it is. So if this is 7 or 8 buildings, that's like, I don't know, like a 10% of the buildings in Weimar that now additionally covering. It's more about capacity of the fire department. And is there some kind of mechanism that it's possible for us to this is strange, but I mean, like, ask the developer for money to sponsor the fire department because they are now taking on additional responsibility for these buildings.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm just curious, Zach, what do you need from us tonight?
Well, yeah, again, what's on the table right now is, a watercourse development permit application to consider, the proposed development. I think that there's been some good discussion, but, it does come back to making a recommendation on the application here. So, Laura, maybe you want to add something else in terms of the expectations of the committee?
Yeah, I think just for now, it's just this, again, the support or not support for the development permit application side of this project. So I guess right now you're just considering the DP application, and there are all those other facets of the project. But I think right now, because what you're voting or what you're supporting or not supporting is the development permit application. So same thing, just moving. If you want to make a motion to support or not support the development permit application.
I know that Tom had some concerns about, the environmental impacts, as we all do. And, but I think the horses are already out of the barn at this point, as far as the commission goes. So I would entertain a motion that we support the environmental assessment process, and allow these guys to advance their project to the next level. There's a lot of questions that they still need to answer, but I'm not sure. I think they purchased the land, and the legal aspects of it are probably well underway right now. So, and they, who knows what's behind the scene, but I can't see us making an assessment or coming up with a conclusion that the environmental assessment doesn't hold water. But I mean, we have definitely expressed our concerns throughout the whole thing, and so I think we should entertain a motion to support the development project at this stage of the game, at least because of the environmental assessment. I mean, I think that helps the proponent, make decisions about where they want to go with it, or if they want to try and back out of it. I mean, we're not going to make a decision tonight to kibosh the proposal, I don't think, not with the information that we have.
You mean like for us, we wouldn't necessarily choose to not support this? I guess my question is because, I mean, basically, that's just information for the board, right? They'll just be like, oh, the community commission is actually not in support at this point. So that's information for them to consider, which they may, they'll just take that under consideration and then continue on with their process. It's not like necessarily that this would bring anything to a halt. Am I right in my thinking there?
And I think that what you're considering right now is very specifically that development permit application. And so, and Zach, I'm not sure if they have other applications that they have to go through as part of this process. But I think just for now, you're supporting or not supporting what is within that development permit application.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach, are there other opportunities for the commissioners to speak to the project in a more general way or through the director, through Hans?
I mean, there's no other applications that will be required other than a building permit application if it gets to that point. Maybe I think Carla has a question, and then I can maybe just speak to one other thing about the item.
Yeah, Carla, go
I'm
for it.
curious about the document that's from the Tanaha council about, I just haven't seen this before in an application. I'm curious if this is something that's very typical, Zach. Have you seen this before about the like stop order stuff that happens if there is any kind of archaeological find, and if this is just like a copy and paste document from something else, or if there's been significant actual consultation and thoughts about that in this process?
Yeah, great question. So Tanaha Nation Council was referred the rezoning application. What they had indicated was that, you know, it's part of an archaeological overview assessment area. So like a high level study was done by the province to say that there could be, you know, archaeological or cultural resources in this area. The property owners, the applicants did get a professional archaeologist to do an archaeological impact assessment for the property prior to the board considering first and second reading of the rezoning application. And that came back essentially negative, that basically the professional archaeologist's recommendation was that no further archaeological studies are required based on his site assessment. And I forwarded that report to consideration, and they formally confirmed that they don't have any further concerns from the perspective of archaeological resources.
No, thank you for that, Zach.
Oh, sorry. And then the one other question I think you had was just about that document towards the end of the environmental report. And that is that it's a chance find procedure. And it is a pretty standard requirement that the QEPs, at least Mass Environmental, they attach that chance find procedure to the end of every environmental report that they do in our area. So it is pretty much like a standardized form from Tanaha Nation.
And that's the only nation that was consulted in this.
So we did send it to a number of different First Nations communities, and the remainder of the nations that were consulted either came back identifying they had no concerns or deferring to other First Nations communities, but there were no other concerns raised by other First Nations communities on the rezoning application.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. So getting back to this, to the motion to support or not support, can we have a motion from the floor to either support or not support it?
I am very reluctant to support this before or without the caveat or something on there about like proper consultation with Weimar Fire.
Okay.
I think I've seen other APHCs do similar things in terms of recommendations, or I don't know if maybe you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah,
Like
well,
conditional support.
and I have seen them, add the caveat of something else. And I'm wondering if it's relevant because this is the development permit application, but I don't see why not. You could add that caveat of
Okay.
confirmation from Weimar Fire.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing just before making the motion here, I just wanted to just say that I think Lori did sum it up really well when she was kind of summarizing the end result of these meetings and how the board considers them. That was like perfectly stated, how it is a recommendation that they take under consideration, but it's not binding in any way. So if there's kind of lingering concerns, that there's no harm in just flagging those as potential issues that the board should think about.
Yeah, I just feel like there's no other way to communicate back to the applicant from this level of, unless you say something like that, there's no other way of voicing that concern in this process than to have a caveat on it. And I understand that this commission has very little teeth in the matter. I understand that. But I feel like if there's any way to get a message about that, that would be really great.
Okay, can we amend it, the motion to include the caveat that Carla suggested, which is that, the developers need to, work with the Weimar Fire Department to, determine what sort of level of coverage they require and how much they're willing to pay or whatever, like negotiate or whatever with the Weimar Fire Department to ensure that there is fire coverage that they can manage.
Okay.
So
Okay, so the wording is to ensure that Weimar Fire has the resources or is not overextended with this application or something.
Yeah, and the capacity to deal with it, exactly. Okay.
So do you want to, like, just for formality's sake, do you want to just put that in the wording, like we support or not support? And then I'll get it in the minutes, sort of just like the whole statement of if someone wants to move and then second, and then we'll know if it's carried.
So I think, we're talking about supporting it, assuming the Weimar Fire Department is able to deal with those issues, right? That they're happy with the proposal. Or are we not supporting it? Until that happens.
I'd like to hear Lori's opinion about this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm under the impression that it might make sense to support it with the caveat that's kind of brought to the table for further discussion potentially amongst the board members to consider. Because, or it's probably going to have the same result if we don't support it. So it's just, it depends on.
I've lost the audio feed.
You're muted, Lori.
Oh yeah, I don't know if that helps, Carla, if that made sense, or did you lose what I was saying fully?
I lost
So
the
you
last
just
part
got
of what you were saying.
muted for the last bit there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know if this is going to be helpful, but it feels like either way, the same result is probably going to come from what we bring forward. So if we support it with the caveat that, we would like them to be considering more consultation with the fire department and considering that they may not have the resources to take on any sort of emergency scenario there. And or if we don't support it, it's probably going to be the same outcome. So I don't know if that helps. I guess it's just sort of like, what do we want to do? Do we want to make a comment, a statement? Do we really not support this? And then we're just going to name that. So yeah, again, I'm not sure that's helpful, but that's sort of how I see it.
Okay. Well.
And I think you could word it, and I've seen it with other APHCs, where you say that the APHC either supports or not supports. And then just add that caveat at the end. And I can word it like that in the minutes that are going to the board. It's just whether or not all of you support or not support.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's just.
Like, I'm kind of neutral on the project myself. I could either support it or not support it.
I know, and I mean, I feel a little conflicted because we have supported it thus far.
Yes.
But it's sort of the nature of the beast in that you get more information, right? It starts to make a little bit more sense. You have a bit more time to think about the impact one way or the other. So, I think that might be what's happening for me. Maybe in a perfect world, it's like, no, let's leave it just like, pristine and natural. However, there's these individuals that have like invested all of, you know, their time, money, resources, et cetera, and we have supported it thus far. So I guess I'm leaning towards continuing with that and just trusting that the process is going to be appropriate and it will go through if it's, you know, meant to, like if it all the boxes get checked.
Right. Okay, well, you know, as the chair, I'm not sure I can make the motion, but what have you got so far there, Laura?
Well, I just said the Area G Advisory Planning and Heritage Commission either supports or not supports the development permit application package for this property, with the caveat, and I can word it another way, that the developers need to work with Weimar Fire to ensure that they have capacity to
Yes.
deal with
That would be a friendly amendment there to the caveat, that's for sure.
What do you think, Carla? Does that sit right to support with it laid out like that?
I am not a biologist, so I don't know what, like, I think this is an incredibly sensitive environmental area because this is where grizzly bear habitat is, like, absolutely for sure. But
Right.
the whole side of the mountain's been logged the shit out of, so I'm not really sure that that's any kind of thing. And last time in the last meeting we had, I did mention that, and the person who was applying for the application at that point said, "Oh no, we don't think it will have any kind of effect on grizzly bear habitat." So I don't like there's only 3 of us in this room right now, so I don't feel like there's enough people. But I mean, if we say yes, if we say we don't support it, then will the developer get any messaging about the Weimar Fire? And if we say we do support it, and then the Weimar Fire thing is in there, is that a better message? Like, what's more likely to get them to work with Weimar Fire is what I would do. Philosophically, I probably don't support it, but I could be swayed to do it.
So either way, there will be further consultation with Weimar and the RDCK Fire Services in general. I've already spoken to the chief or the deputy chief at this time, and basically he's expressed concerns with the way it's currently laid out. There will be further discussions with fire services in general, and those discussions will include Weimar Fire. I think they would be the ones to have to point out kind of capacity concerns, but I'm sure, like, you know, you're a resident there, you understand the local kind of limitations of a small volunteer fire department. So yeah, like, we're through this process, there will be further discussions with both the building department and, you know, Weimar Fire to try and ensure that they're you know, that they're consulted, and any concerns or restrictions that they have, that we can do our best to implement those.
I was also going to say that I have seen other APHCs make the comment that they support it, you know, with the reassurance, or just with the reassurance that the development permit, the QEP report in the development permit is followed. I mean, not that it gives much more strength to it, but just, I'm just thinking if it makes you feel more comfortable, just wording it in a way where.
Well, you know, to play the devil's advocate, sometimes, like, there is already development going on in that area. Like, there's a lodge there, there's Whitewater Ski Hill. You know, Robert, the last guy, is going to be building a house on that property that's adjacent to it. You know, there's the Nordic ski track that's in there that runs their equipment and their packers, you know, on the snow and stuff like that. There's all that clear cut logging that's happened in the upper elevations on both sides, which is going to affect the hydrology of that whole site. Chances are there is going to be some flooding in there in the future because of that. You know, it's not a perfect world there for sure. But the way they're doing it, the fact that they're bringing in gravel fill and building up the land base next to the highway so they can build their buildings on there is going to elevate it above the floodplain. And as long as they don't muck up the hydrology of the water coming across under the roads and the culverts and stuff like that, you know, it's probably not a bad business idea for them, and it's even not even a bad like development idea as far as the scale and the participation and the tourism and all of that, the economic benefits of that, right? So sort of weighing off that against environmental impacts, you know, and then does this set a precedent for future development in this area? Like, are we going to get another application that says, oh shit, we want to extend this, you know, over here, and here's our biologist report that's going to, you know, we're paying them to say yes to this project or whatever, you know, so there's that too. But I think that, like, we asked a lot of these questions, Carla, tough questions to the developers when they were at the meeting the last time, and they had pretty good answers. You know, they understood. I think they understood the impacts of what they were trying to do there. At one point, they were talking about boardwalks, but anyway, go ahead, Carla.
I just think that what you just mentioned is what I'm concerned about, Dave, is that this is, I mean, I'm not stupid. I understand that there's going to be a lot more development between here and Nelson. And I understand it's going to increase the tax base of the RDCK. And I understand that that's a good thing in some ways. I guess what I am worried about is that the same concern I would bring up at anyone about the increased fire being as we're going into a drought and high fire season, what that looks like. And not just a season, but like a epic or epoch, I mean, of that happening, right? So I guess that's just a concern I would have overall. And I also am concerned that there's only 3 of us in this meeting, and so making a recommendation on behalf of the whole thing with only this many humans, and there's that, it just makes me feel uneasy, that's all.
Okay, well, why don't we express those concerns to the board, you know, and just say, until there's more details provided, or until, you know, we don't really support it. I mean, we can do that. It's just us at a vote. We don't, you know, we can say, well, you know, there's so many questions about what could happen in this area. There's questions about climate change and the impact it's going to have on the ecology of that area. You know, and we're concerned about that. And so therefore, you know, we don't, like you say, we don't have a complete commission here tonight, so we don't have other, you know, people bringing their viewpoints forward, right? But if the developers were here, you know, defending their proposal and stuff like that, we'd probably be getting more information from them, and they would hear more from us as well. And they're going to have to come up with more answers too, right? I mean, this isn't over yet by any means. You know, there's a lot of concerns about it, and I know there's the, you know, the environmental impacts are real, and the people that live in and around that area are pretty concerned about what that might mean. It could impact the Selma River, for goodness sakes. You know, we don't know. That's the headwaters of the Selma River. You know, what's it going to do to the flow rates there? You know, as a hydrologist looked at it, you know. So there's a lot of unanswered questions and no real guarantees that you know, things are going to be copacetic when if this thing goes ahead. So I mean, we could say that at this point in time, because of the you know, the environmental assessment that was done, you know, we're concerned and we don't really support it without more detailed information on how they're going to deal with some of these issues. I mean, I'll shut up now.
So, and Dave, do you want to put that forth as a motion that you don't support it?
Yes, I put that forward as a motion.
So you put that forward as a motion that you don't support it?
Yes.
You don't feel comfortable?
That's right. We're not in a position to support it at this time because of the environmental assessment.
And
because of the lack of consultation with the Weimar Fire Department.
Okay. And did anyone, so now I guess you go through the motion of does anyone want to second that?
Yeah, so we need a seconder for that.
Yeah,
Carla?
I can second that.
Or Lori? Okay, so we got a seconder. Okay, all in favor?
As long as it includes the thing about the Weimar Fire Department, I'm in favor too.
Yes. Do you want me to read you?
Yeah.
And then you
Yes.
can tell me how you want to change it. So the Area G Advisory Planning and Heritage Committee does not support the development permit application because you feel that you don't have enough information.
Without further consultation or without additional consultation to the Weimar Fire Department, and because of the lack of, there are more questions around environmental impact.
The environmental assessment. See, there's a whole new field of study around environmental assessments now. There's deterministic, which is where they use a professional QP, professional qualified person to do the assessment. But now they're talking about probabilistic. So when you have climate change impacting, what's the hydrological effect of that? You know, it's a probabilistic view, which takes into consideration more than just a professional's opinion. So, you know, that's the other aspect of it. Things are changing as far as our knowledge around environmental assessments and what's going on with climate change.
Okay. Okay, I think I have got the idea of it, and that it's not supported because you have more questions surrounding the environmental impact of the project.
Correct.
Okay.
And because of
you would like further consultation with the Weimar Fire Department and confirmation that the fire department has sufficient capacity to service the proposed development?
Yeah.
Correct.
Capacity and resources.
Okay, I think I got that.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Or Laura. Okay, so are we voted on that? Or we need to vote again? We're good?
No, that's good. It was carried and I've noted it.
Okay. Right
So
on.
now, I guess you can't see. So now it's public time.
Right.
And there's one unverified observer. Would you want, so you could ask them if they would want to make themselves.
Yeah, so our unverified observer has time now to comment or give us any input.
Guess not.
Okay, hearing none. The next meeting is scheduled for April the 24th at 7 p.m. And we'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Carla, seconded by Lori. All of us are in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you,
Awesome.
you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Dave. It's good to see you, Lori.
Yeah, you too, Carla.
it. You take
Okay.
care.